The music still hummed in Liam's ears as he stepped into the quiet of the hotel suite. The wedding had been everything they dreamed of. Golden lights, stolen kisses, Sophia's laughter ringing like a melody he never wanted to forget. She had squeezed his hand before slipping away to change, her smile secretive, her eyes shimmering with something he couldn't name. "I'll be right back," she had whispered. That was the last time he heard her voice. When he pushed open the bedroom door minutes later, the air was too still. The rustle of fabric, the sound of her humming, gone. The only movement was the slow sway of the curtains in the night breeze. And then he saw her. Sophia lay on the bed, still in her wedding dress, one hand resting gently over her heart. Her eyes were closed, her lips slightly parted, as if she had simply drifted into sleep. But the unnatural stillness of her chest told him the truth before his trembling fingers even brushed her skin. Number. His breath came in sharp, ragged gasps as he shook her, called her name, pressed his ear to her lips, waiting, praying for the whisper of breath. But there was nothing. Only silence. The doctors would later call it a tragedy, a cruel twist of fate. Sudden cardiac arrest, they said. Young, healthy people sometimes. Liam stopped listening, because none of it made sense. Sophia had been fine, and yet as he stood in the suffocating silence of their now empty home days later, one question clawed at him. Why had she looked so afraid when she smiled at him that last time? The days after Sophia's death passed in a haze, each moment heavy with a grief so thick Liam could barely breathe. The house once filled with her laughter and the soft hum of her voice, now echoed with silence. Every corner held a memory, her favorite coffee mug still on the counter, the book she had been reading left open on the nightstand, as if she would walk back in at any moment and pick up where she left off. But she wouldn't. She was gone, and no amount of wishing could change that. The funeral had been a blur of somber faces and murmured condolences, people touching his arm with pitying looks, as if they could somehow share the weight of his loss. Sophia's mother had collapsed twice, her sobs raw and broken, while her father stood stiffly, his jaw clenched so tight Liam feared it might shatter. And then there was Liam himself, standing beside the casket, staring at the woman who was supposed to be his wife, his future, now lying motionless in white silk. The same dress she had worn when she had smiled at him just hours before. The doctors had no real answers. "Sometimes these things just happen," they said, their voices gentle but empty. "A sudden arrhythmia, an undiagnosed condition. It's rare but not impossible." But Liam couldn't accept that. Sophia had been healthy, vibrant, full of life. She had never complained of chest pain, never fainted, never shown any sign that something was wrong. And yet, she was gone. It wasn't until the third night after the funeral, when the last of the relatives had left and the house was finally still, that Liam allowed himself to enter their bedroom. He hadn't been able to sleep in there since it happened, the memory of finding her lifeless body too fresh, too painful. But now, driven by some unnameable need, he stepped inside, his breath hitching as his eyes fell on the bed. The sheets were still rumpled from that night, the indentation of her body faint but visible. And then he saw it. On the nightstand, half hidden beneath a stack of wedding cards, was Sophia's diary. She had always written in it, jotting down thoughts, dreams, little notes to herself. Liam had never read it. It felt private, sacred. But now his fingers trembled as he reached for it, flipping through the pages until something caught his eye. A sealed envelope. His name was written on it in Sophia's delicate handwriting, and the date, 2 weeks before the wedding. His heart pounded as he turned it over, his fingers tracing the edges. Why would she have written him a letter before the wedding, and why had she never given it to him? Something cold settled in his chest as he carefully peeled back the seal. Whatever was inside, he knew. It would change everything. The paper felt fragile in Liam's hands, as if it might dissolve into dust if he held it too tightly. For a long moment, he simply stared at it, his mind racing with possibilities, some terrifying, others impossible. The weight of the moment pressed down on him, the air in the room suddenly too thick to breathe. He could almost hear Sophia's voice, soft and hesitant, as if she were standing beside him, whispering, "Just read it." And so he did. The words were unmistakably hers. The slight curve of her handwriting, the way she dotted her eyes with tiny hearts when she was feeling sentimental. But the tone was different. This wasn't the playful, loving Sophia he knew. This was a voice he had never heard before. Steady, resigned, aching with something that made his chest tighten with dread. My love, and the letter began. If you're reading this, it means I'm gone. And I'm so, so sorry. A sharp breath escaped him, his fingers tightening on the paper. I found out 3 months ago, she continued. The doctors called it a rare degenerative condition. No cure, no real treatment. Just time, and not much of it. They told me I had maybe 6 months left, maybe less. I didn't believe them at first. I felt fine. I was fine. But then the test came back, and there was no denying it. Liam's vision blurred. The words swam on the page, but he forced himself to keep reading, his heart hammering against his ribs. I thought about telling you. God, I wanted to. But every time I tried, I saw the way you looked at me, like I was your whole future. And I couldn't take that away from you. Not yet. Not before the wedding. I wanted one perfect day with you, Liam. One day where we were just happy. No sadness, no goodbyes. Just us. A sob rose in his throat, but he choked it back, his hands shaking so badly the paper rustled. I know this isn't fair. I know you'll hate me for keeping this secret. But please, please don't think I regretted a single moment. Marrying you was the last thing I ever wanted to do, and the first thing I ever needed. I love you, and I need you to promise me something. Live. Really live. For both of us. The letter ended there, but beneath her signature, she had scribbled one last line. P.S. There's a USB taped inside the back cover of this diary. Watch it when you're ready. Liam nearly dropped the diary in his haste to flip it over. And there, tucked neatly against the spine, was a small silver flash drive. His breath came in short, ragged gasps as he turned it over in his palm. What else didn't he know? The USB drive felt unnaturally heavy in Liam's palm, as if it carried not just data, but the weight of all the words Sophia had left unspoken. He turned it over, his thumb brushing against the cold metal, hesitating. Part of him wanted to hurl it across the room, to pretend he'd never found it, to cling to the fragile illusion that her death had been nothing more than a cruel twist of fate. But the other part, the part that still recognized her handwriting like his own heartbeat, needed to know. His laptop screen flickered to life, casting a pale glow across the darkened room. The drive slid in with a quiet click, and for a moment, nothing happened. Then a single video file appeared, labeled simply, "For Liam." His breath hitched as he double-clicked it. The screen remained black for a heartbeat too long before her face appeared, and the sheer normalcy of it nearly shattered him. There she was, Sophia, alive, her hair slightly messy as if she'd just run a hand through it, her eyes bright despite the shadows beneath them. She was sitting in their living room, wearing that oversized sweater she always stole from him, the one he hadn't been able to find for weeks. The timestamp in the corner read 3 weeks before the wedding. "Hey you," she said softly, and the sound of her voice after days of silence sent a physical ache through his chest. She smiled, but it was different, softer, sadder. The kind of smile you give when you're trying to be brave. If you're watching this, it means, well, you know what it means. She paused, her fingers twisting in the fabric of her sleeves. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I didn't tell you. I couldn't stand the thought of you looking at me differently. Not yet. The camera shifted slightly as she leaned forward, her face filling the screen. The doctors said stress could make things worse, so I tried to stay calm, tried to pretend everything was normal. But God, Liam, it was so hard. Every time you talked about our honeymoon, or our future house, or kids, her voice broke, and she pressed her lips together for a moment before continuing. I wanted all of it, so badly, and it kills me that we'll never get to have those things. A tear slipped down her cheek and Liam reached out instinctively, his fingertips brushing the screen before he caught himself. I need you to know something, she whispered. This wasn't your fault. There was nothing you could have done. And I need you to promise me you won't spend the rest of your life asking, what if? She wiped at her face with a shaky laugh. Look at me, giving orders from beyond the grave. But seriously, live. Travel somewhere stupidly expensive. Adopt that dog we always argued about. Fall in love again. Just don't stop living because I did. The video ended abruptly, the screen snapping back to black, leaving Liam alone in the silence with the echo of her voice. He didn't realize he was crying until the first sob tore from his throat. The days blurred together after Liam watched the video, each one heavier than the last. He played it over and over, clinging to the sound of her voice like a lifeline, as if by listening enough times, he could somehow pull her back through the screen. But no amount of replaying changed the truth. Sophia had known she was dying, and she had chosen to keep it from him. The anger came in waves, hot and suffocating, only to dissolve into guilt just as quickly. How had he not seen it? The way she'd held him a little tighter those last few weeks. The way her laughter sometimes sounded just a little too bright, like she was trying to memorize the sound of it. The signs had been there, and he'd missed every single one. It was the USB drive that kept pulling him back. There had to be more. Sophia wouldn't have left him with just a letter and a video, not when she'd had weeks to plan what to say. He scoured the house, searching for anything she might have left behind, any piece of her that could help him understand. He tore through drawers, flipped through every book on their shelves, even checked the pockets of coats she hadn't worn in months. Nothing. Then on a whim, he opened her laptop. The password was his birthday, just like it had always been. The desktop was cluttered with folders, wedding plans, work documents, a half-finished novel she'd been writing. His pulse spiked when he spotted a folder simply labeled Liam. Inside were dozens of files, photos, voice memos, even drafts of the letter he'd found. But one stood out, a document titled Read Me Last. He opened it. It was a list. 1. The bench by the river where we had our first date. Check under the left side. 2. My blue jewelry box. The fake bottom comes out. 3. Behind the photo in the hallway, the one from our trip to Maine. His hands shook as he read the rest. 12 locations in total, each with a brief, cryptic note. It wasn't just a goodbye. It was a treasure hunt. Sophia had left him one last thing, a trail of pieces of herself, scattered in the places that had meant the most to them, and he had no idea what he'd find at the end of it. The riverbank was exactly as Liam remembered it. The same weathered wooden bench, the same gnarled oak tree stretching its branches over the water, the same golden light filtering through the leaves in the late afternoon. He and Sophia had come here on their first date 3 years ago, sharing a bag of sour candy and talking until the stars came out. Now, as he knelt beside the bench, his fingers brushed against the rough wood beneath the left armrest, just as her note had instructed. At first he felt nothing, just the smooth, sun-warmed surface, but then his fingertips caught on a tiny, almost imperceptible groove, a hidden compartment. His breath hitched as he dug his nails into the narrow gap, prying it open with a quiet scrape. Inside was a small, watertight case, the kind used for storing camping matches or emergency cash. He pried it open, and nestled inside was a single folded sheet of paper and a delicate silver key. The paper was another note in Sophia's handwriting, but this one was different, less polished, more hurried, as if she'd scribbled it in a moment of urgency. If you're reading this, you've started the game, it began, and Liam could almost hear her laughing as she wrote it. The key opens my blue jewelry box, but before you go there, I need you to do something for me. Sit on this bench for exactly 12 minutes. No more, no less. Trust me. Liam frowned, checking his watch. 12 minutes. What could possibly? Then it hit him. 12 minutes was how long they'd sat in silence on their first date, too nervous to speak, before Sophia had finally burst out laughing and said, "Okay, this is ridiculous. Tell me something weird about yourself, or I'm leaving." So he sat. He counted the seconds in his head, watching the river ripple under the breeze, and for the first time since her death, he didn't feel the crushing weight of grief. Instead, he felt something else, a flicker of warmth, like she was sitting beside him, her shoulder pressed against his. When the 12 minutes were up, he unfolded the note again, turning it over to find a postscript he'd missed. Now look up. Above him, tangled in the branches of the oak tree, was a small origami crane, Sophia's favorite. He reached up, carefully untangling it, and as he unfolded the delicate paper, a single sentence was written inside. The next clue is where we first said, "I love you, but you'll need the key to find it." Liam's throat tightened. Their first "I love you" had been in her childhood bedroom during a snowstorm, stranded there after a holiday party. The blue jewelry box had sat on her dresser for years. She wasn't just leaving him clues. She was taking him back through their love story, one piece at a time. The drive to Sophia's childhood home was a blur of winding roads and half-forgotten landmarks, each turn pulling Liam deeper into a past that felt both achingly familiar and impossibly distant. The house looked smaller than he remembered, its white paint peeling slightly at the edges. But the old oak tree in the front yard still stood tall, its branches heavy with summer leaves. Sophia's parents had moved out months ago, unable to bear the memories lingering in every room. But they'd given Liam a key when he called, their voices thick with a grief that mirrored his own. "Take whatever you need," her father had said, and the unspoken "we can't go back there" hung between them like a shadow. The bedroom was frozen in time. The same lavender walls, the same faded band posters tacked haphazardly above the bed. The same blue jewelry box sitting on the dresser, dust gathering along its edges. Liam's fingers trembled as he fit the silver key into the lock, the click of the mechanism echoing in the quiet room. Inside, nestled among tangled necklaces and forgotten earrings, was a small velvet pouch. He upended it into his palm, and a single item tumbled out. A flash drive, identical to the first, but this one labeled "The End of the Road." Her laptop was still on the desk, an ancient thing covered in stickers, its charger coiled beside it like a sleeping snake. It whirred to life slowly, the screen flickering as he inserted the drive. A single video file appeared. This time, when Sophia's face filled the screen, she wasn't in their living room or anywhere he recognized. She was sitting on a hospital bed, her hair pulled into a messy bun, her skin paler than he'd ever seen it. The timestamp read 2 days before the wedding. "Hey," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "If you're watching this, you've made it to the end. And I'm so proud of you." She paused, her fingers twisting in the sheets. "I didn't just leave you clues for fun. I needed you to remember, really remember, how much love we had. Because love like that doesn't disappear. It can't." A tear slipped down her cheek, but she didn't wipe it away. "The doctors said I had a week left, maybe less. But I refused to let that be the end. So I planned the wedding. I wrote those letters. I hid those clues. Because I wanted my last act to be giving you something to hold on to when the grief felt like too much." She took a shaky breath. "There's one last thing. In the back of my closet, behind the winter coats, there's a box. It's for you. But don't open it yet. Wait for a day when the sun is shining and you feel like you can breathe again. Then open it and know I'm right there with you." The screen went dark. Liam didn't move for a long time. Then slowly he crossed to the closet, pushing aside coats he remembered her wearing, the thick wool one from their ski trip, the denim jacket she'd stolen from him and never returned. And there, tucked into the very back, was a simple wooden box. He didn't open it. Not yet. Instead, he carried it to the window, where the late afternoon sun spilled across the floor, and sat with it in his lap, his fingers tracing the carved initials on the lid, S+L. For the first time since her death, he smiled, because she was right. Love like theirs didn't disappear. It never could.
Subscribe and press the bell icon so that you never miss the amazing video.